Hello, today we are going to be coding our index page for our website for DES 248 Web Design 2. I'm going to start right from the beginning, downloading the assignment files and defining our site in Dreamweaver. Again, you should be running Adobe Dreamweaver CC 2017. The way I have my workspace set up is under standard view, not developer view. So you can go, if you are in standard view, it would look like this. If you're in developer view, it would look like this. To switch it over to standard view, just go to the drop down in the right hand corner, click on standard. Another thing that I have open is my properties panel down at the bottom. If that is not showing, you can go to window properties. I also have my DOM panel showing, my files panel showing, my CSS designer showing, insert and CC libraries, but I won't be using the CC libraries right now, so you don't really need to worry about that so much. So your workspace should look similar to mine in order for you to follow along. If you find that you don't have two panels showing, it may be that it's closed up and you have just one panel, so you can just drag your workspace over a little bit to the left. You can tell when you're in the CSS designer tab until it becomes two panels. I just find that that is easiest visually to work with. So let's get started by downloading our files for our assignment. Now, the way I am going to do this is I am going to code one page per video, and you can work along. The coding may not match exactly what is required in the assignment and the assessment. It will be up to you to read over the instructions, to watch the live session videos that accompany this course, and to figure out what you need to be submitting for each assignment and assessment. However, I have found that it will be easiest if I code one page at a time for you and we work our way through the site this way. So this is the way that I will be handling the coding of this, this website. So as you scroll down through your assignment one, you will reach the course resource files. And it will tell you that you can download the student starter files.zip. So you're going to want to click on that and download those student starter files. This is going to have all of the files that you need to complete each assignment and assessment throughout the entire course. There is a screenshot, it's not showing up right now, that will show you what is in the contents of the zip file. So after you have downloaded that, it's going to put it in your downloads folder. You need to move that out of your downloads folder. You cannot work out of your downloads folder. I currently work in Dropbox, and what I do is I make a folder for each mod that I am working in along with the corresponding course. So what you will want to do is create a folder called DES 248 Lawn Care Site, put your name at the end, so I know it's yours. And that's how you will set up this site. So very similar to that. I'm going to create a new folder and start right from the beginning. So I'm going to call it DES 248 Lawn Care Site underscore my first initial, my last name, and then open up that folder. Now in my downloads, I can either drag the zip file right into this folder and unzip it in there, or I can unzip it in my downloads. It's really up to you at this point what you want to do. Just make sure that you unzip that file, and you can delete the zip file after you do that. There we go. You may also want to change the name of student starter files to your name as well. Just because if you submit it and everybody submits student starter files, it's going to be extremely difficult when I download your sites to see whose file is whose. So I would change the main folder name before you get started to your name. And let's take a look at what we have here. we have our lawn care site, which has images. Right here, we have a home page. We have a CSS sheet, style sheet. We have some PSD mockups. We have a doc file that has our website ad copy, the homepage mockup, which is a PSD file, and then we have the other images that go with our site, and we have a folder full of wireframes. Because today we are just dealing with the index file, you don't have to move all of the images into the images folder. However, it would make the most sense at this point to just copy and paste or just move those images in. If you want to keep a copy in the lawn care site images, that's fine. Hold down your option key and just select, or hold down your shift key, select everything that's in your lawn care images folder, then hold down your option key. You should get a plus sign. See how I have a plus sign? And drag it over your images folder, and you can copy and paste all of those images in. Any image that is going to be in your website should be in this images folder. And it's just easier to put it all in right from the beginning. You have everything, you know it's in there. It's one less thing that you're going to need to worry about. So first things first, in Dreamweaver, we can't just open up this index file and start working. That's not how it works. We have to define our site. Otherwise, when you send your site to me and it is not defined, all of your image links will be broken, all of your hyperlinks will be broken, and the same exact thing will happen when you upload your site to a server. Everything will be broken, and you will need to go in and reconfigure your entire site. So it is extremely important that you follow this first step when creating your website. If you don't, it's going to wreak havoc on your site at the worst possible moment at the end when you think you are done. So please make sure you are following this first step. All right, so we're back in Dreamweaver now. I'm going to go into Site, which is up here in the taskbar, New Site, because I'm creating a new site, and I'm going to name it Lawn Care Shannon McNamara. You would put your own name. And then what it's going to ask me to do is it's going to ask me to browse for that folder that we just downloaded, this the DES 248 lawn care site. It's going to ask me to look for that particular folder right there. Do not select the entire folder, the DES 248 with your name that you downloaded. Just open it up and select just that DES 248 lawn care site. That's because the only things that you need are the images, the index, and the style sheet. You don't want to start adding in all of these extra things into Dreamweaver because you're not going to be using them in there. So I want to navigate and browse for this specific folder. That's why it's important that you take it out of your downloads folder and you put it somewhere where you know it is going to be. So I'm going to click browse. And I'm going to navigate right over to where I put that folder. And here's my site. I can double check and make sure it's got all those images I just copied in. It has my index.html and my style sheet. So I'm going to select just this folder and hit the button for choose. Now there's one more step I need to do when I'm defining my site. I need to let Dreamweaver know where all of those images are. So under the tab right here for advanced settings, you're going to need to open that tab up. And the very first option is local info. You'll see it says default images folder. So what I want to do is I want to browse for folder, and it should bring me right into the lawn care site that I just defined. So I can select that images folder. You just need to select just that images folder, click the button for choose, and hit save. And what it's going to do is here under the Files tab, if you're not on the Files tab, click on the Files tab. You will notice that your site is there. What should be showing up is the route path of where your site is located. So mine's located on Dropbox, so you can see my route path. There should be your images folder. If you open it up, all the images should be in there. You should have an index.html file and a styles.css, which is your style sheet. So because a lot of your HTML has been written for you in this course. So what we are going to be doing today is we are going to be adding in some CSS to this page to make it look like the homepage mockup that we were given. So let's take a look at that mockup. And you'll be able to see the differences right away when we open up the index.html file. It's going to look very basic. It's not going to look formatted. And the reason behind that is the CSS is what makes the page look like it's supposed to look. Just get rid of that. So here's a desktop version of the site. We have a logo, we have a green background going on, we have services, gallery, the crew, contact us. We have 2 colored boxes. I am not going to be particular about the box color that you put here. It defaults, I believe, in the HTML and the CSS that's in there to tan and black. That is fine for you to leave. I am personally going to leave that. That's not going to be something I'm going to be double checking. And then we have some social media icons going on down here. But you'll also notice that we have a tablet version of the website, which kind of changes the format. And we have a mobile version of the website, which again is changed. So as the screen starts to shrink, you can see that we go from, the website starts to collapse upon itself. And this is what we call a responsive website and responsive design. This is where those media queries that we were discussing in our live session come in. And we're going to get into a little bit more detail later on regarding the media queries and how this all works. But you will notice when you open up your index.html that the media queries are also already in there for you. So it is one less thing that you need to do. So what we're just going to be focusing on is getting our CSS in there so that way the site starts to resemble the mockup in Photoshop. So let's go back into Dreamweaver. You can double click on index.html right in that files, and it's going to pull up your file. And we can take a look and see what it is that is going on. I'm going to put it into live view so you can just take a look at what is happening right here. You can see that some images have been put in. We have some hyperlinks, but there's no style to this page. And the reason behind that is HTML is basically if you think of a website as a house, HTML is your framing. So that's like your very basic wooded framing that goes up. Your siding, your paint, your blinds, the flooring you put in, all of that takes place within the CSS. So you need to build the framework before you can start to make it look pretty. So that, like I said, a lot of the CSS is here for you. And we can go into our DOM panel and take a look at what is going on. And you'll notice that we have a header section. When I click on the header section in the DOM panel, it selects in the live view what is included in that header section. So included in the header is my logo and my navigation. Referring back to Photoshop, I can see that that is all up here, exactly where a header section should go, right at the top of the page. Next, I have my main section, which includes my lawn care and landscaping. No yard is too small or large. Inspiration gallery, meet the crew, yada, 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 and these images. So I can see that this is happening in here, but this guy seems to be missing. So we're gonna need to deal with him. Next, I have my footer section, which has my copyright of 2017 lawn care landscaping. This website is a student project and does not represent a real company. All rights reserved by Independence University. So I can see again, here's my footer down at the bottom, but my social media icons are missing. So these are some things that I am going to need to deal with when I start putting the finishing touches on this web page. Some of the items are there, some of the items are missing. But I do have a CSS sheet that came with my downloads. So I need to attach that sheet that I'm given to this website. And the way that I do that is in the tab for CSS Designer. So I'm going to click on that tab. And you'll notice that you have 4 boxes here. One is for sources, one is for media, one is for selectors, and one is for properties. Right now, we're going to be focusing on our sources. This is our source, styles.css. So I'm going to click the big button. I can either click the plus or the big button right here that says add a new CSS source. And I want to attach an existing CSS file because I was given a CSS file in my downloads. If I was not given a CSS file, I would need to create a CSS file. But in this instance, you were given one, so we're going to use the one that was given. And it's going to ask me to browse for it. So I'm going to click Browse, and I'm going to navigate back into my site and find that styles.css right here and click Open. And then I'll click OK. And as soon as I do that, I can see that, some changes have already started to take place on my in my live view. So I can see that I'm not starting off with a blank CSS palette. Some of the CSS has been added for me. So let's take a look. At this point, it's a good idea to do a save all. And that way we can take a look at the preview. And I'm going to try mine in Google Chrome. If you try to do a preview and it comes up with an error code, this happens from time to time. What I want you to do is save all your files, quit out of Dreamweaver, start Dreamweaver back up, open up your index file, and try to do the preview again. Sometimes the new version of Dreamweaver, it's a little bit buggy. If you watch during the live sessions, I have trouble from time to time as well. And there are many different times where I might have to save my work, completely quit out of what I'm doing, and open up Dreamweaver again to try one more time. So it happens to all of us. So just make sure that you are quitting out, make sure you're saving and saving often. Dreamweaver has a tendency to crash, especially if you have a lot of programs running. So it's also a good idea to kind of quit out of anything else that you might not be using right now, which I am going to do. I'm going to leave my Photoshop open, but I'm going to quit out of a couple of my other programs that I do have running right now. It's just freeing up a little bit of space. Another good idea before you get started is, and even if you've started now, think about the last time that you've restarted your machine. You might want to just quit out, restart your machine, empty out your trash, kind of reallocate all of your memory, and then get jumping into Dreamweaver. Dreamweaver uses a lot of resources on your machine. So that's just something that you're going to want to, take into consideration when you are creating your websites. All right. So we were going to take a look at the preview, and let's compare it to what's going on in the mockup. And again, I'm not going to be particular about color. If you would like to change the color, you can. However, that's not something I'm going to be particular about. I can see that I have a background color. I have my logo up at the top. My navigation does not look like navigation. It looks like bullet points, so I'm going to have to take care of that. My image has shown up, which tells me that this image must be loaded in the CSS, not loaded in the HTML, because it didn't show up until I attached that CSS sheet. And then what I can also start to do is I can look at how this responds. So I hit my first media query right here, and I can see that I'm now down at the tablet size. It started to resize itself. Next, I can see that I've made it to the mobile version. So you can kind of watch what ends up happening when you start to resize your pages and when they hit a specific media query. My footer has the right color bar, but again, I'm gonna have to add in those social media icons. They are not there. So this is what's going on as soon as I attach my CSS source. And as I said, a lot of what we are going to be doing is going to be in the CSS today. So once I attach that source, I have some information that showed up in my at media panel, and I have some information that showed up in my selectors panel. So I want to look at my at media panel first. What this is these are my media queries. Those are the queries that are going to resize my site. So if I click on this purple bar and I can close it up to that first media query, the 768 width. And if I refer back to my Photoshop, that's my tablet width right there, 768. Then I have a media query for 1024, which is wider than this. I would have to close this up. I have a pretty small laptop screen. There's my 1024. And if I go back into Photoshop, I can see that 1024 is my desktop, but I don't have a media query for 480 yet. So I'm going to have to deal with that later, and we're not going to deal with that today. So I'm just going to open this up a little bit until I get the double 2 columns. There we go. And I'll open this back up. What I like to do is I like to work in a logical order when I am coding my websites. Start at the top and move my way down. So I'll start with my header, I will deal with my footer last, and I will work on everything in my main area in the middle. That's the way that I personally like to work on things. So I'm going to click on global, and I want to see what's going on with my selectors right now. So when I click on a selector, you'll notice that it's going to show up what's going on in that panel in my properties, or what's going on in that selector in my properties panel. So I can have show set, which shows only the properties that are attached to this certain selector. If I unclick that, I can actually add other properties to that selector. So for my HTML, there is a selector for HTML with an HTML asterisk. What this is this is a selector that you would always put at the beginning of every single website. It is for padding, margin, and box sizing border box. It's one of those CSS selectors that just runs at the top of your style sheet no matter what website you are making. And here is the code for that. Luckily, this has been done for us. In the past, I've had to show students exactly how to add that code in. It's hard to explain what this does. It just basically resizes things the way they're supposed to be resized. It's code that does what it's supposed to do, is my best way of explaining that. So you can kind of, disregard that. I'm going to leave us in split view so we can take a look at the different code going on. Then I have a selector for heading, and there is padding of 32 pixels. What padding does is it adds some space, based on the top, the bottom, the left, and the right. It literally pads the elements by adding a little bit of a buffer before anything else can come close. And other elements can't come closer than 32 pixels because of this buffer that I have created around my header right now. Next, I have a selector for the footer, which again has some padding. It has 20 pixels at the top and bottom and 30 pixels at the left and right. And it also has a background color. So this is where, if you were very concerned that the background colors are not matching, what you could do is you could eyedrop this background color in Photoshop, double click, grab the hex code right here. So copy it, go back into Dreamweaver, and where it says background color, you could paste in that new background color. Oops. And you'll see it changed the background color. So it's up to you if you want to do that. You can leave it at this, or you can change it to the green. It's really, really up to you. I am going to leave the colors how they are right now. Next, we have a selector for the body, which I can see that it has a margin. Now, margin deals with the space from the edges. So the margin on the left, think about the margins that you create in design when you are putting together a print file. If you create a margin, it kind of gives you a rule where, with some bounding boxes to keep your information within. You will notice that I have a margin left that says auto and a margin right that says auto. What this does, and I can show you a little bit better inside of Google Chrome, is the margin auto keeps everything in my body centered exactly in the middle of my browser window. See how when I start to resize it, I have the same amount of space on the left and the right. Auto on both left and right centers everything in the middle of the page that is inside of my body. And then I have a background color here as well. So again, if you had wanted to change the background color, you can eyedrop that light green, copy and paste the code, and then right here, you need to add the hashtag before the hex code. And you could copy and paste it right in here and change that background color. Next, I have a selector for HP banner. Let's see where that is. Trying to see if it'll select it in my live view. Right. Well, oh, I know where it is. Okay. HP banner is this banner right here. I can tell based on the homepage, it's the homepage banner. So this is where that image of the guy with the, the very, very excited landscaper that I think I would be extremely scared if he showed up to do the landscaping at my house with a chainsaw like that, riding a lawnmower with an axe, where he is located. So his image has been placed in the CSS code right there. The background size is called cover, and then we have some padding again, so given a little bit of space. We have a text color. Anytime you see color, it's actually for text. So the text color is a whole bunch of Fs, that's white. And then the text is aligned centered. So that's what's taking care of centering the text in my banner here, changing the text color to white, giving some padding between the elements of my banner, and adding that image into the background of it. Next, I have a selector for the buttons. So these are the buttons that were placed on the page, those read more buttons that you see placed throughout the page. So the border for my buttons are, let's see, 2 pixels. The padding is 8 pixels at the top and bottom and 30 pixels on the left and right. My border radius is 30 pixels. What the border radius does is it adds that curve to my buttons that you see. So by changing the border radius, I can change the curves of my buttons, the curved corner of my buttons. The color is white, and that is my text color. So you can see that the read more is white. And my text decoration is set at none. And that's because this is a link. And by setting the text decoration to none, default CSS, or anytime you create a link in any type of coding, it's going to automatically underline it. So what you need to do is you need to manually in the CSS take that underline off. Underlined hyperlinks are kind of 1990s. People know when they scroll over and it goes from the black arrow to the little hand that it's a link. So we tend to take those underlines off. Next, I have my info box tan, which right here is my info gallery. I have a background color of this kind of, I mean, it's not really that tan. It's pretty gray, honestly. My text color is black. I have some padding, again, to give it some space, and my text is aligned centered. Next, I have my info box dark. Pretty self-explanatory, the darker of the 2 boxes. The background color is set not exactly to black. It's kind of like a 90% gray going on there. The text color is white. Again, same amount of padding. I'm keeping it consistent. And my text is aligned centered in that box. Then I get into some of my @media selectors. So my first one is for body, which is set the max width to 778 pixels. So that media query will occur when that threshold is met, which is usually on a tablet. I have the banner image changes to the banner image tablet when that occurs. And then I have a media query for 1024, which has the banner set for desktop. So you can see everything that's going on. So the global seems to be set for the mobile at the moment. So we'll just leave that exactly how it is. So those are the selectors that came with your files that you downloaded. But we need to add in more selectors so that way our website will start to resemble this mock-up, other than the colors. Because like I told you, I'm just going to leave the colors as they are. I really want to focus at this point on the actual coding. So with styles.css selected in my sources panel, global selected in my @media panel, and it doesn't matter at this point what selector you have selected. I just want you in the properties to unclick show set because we're going to have to add some more selectors in. Next, what I want you to do is I want you to select header, because I'm going to make a selector right now and I want it to go after my header selector. So anytime I want something to go after, I select the selector before it, and it'll automatically populate the next selector underneath. And I'm going to hit this little plus sign, which if you notice when you hover over it, that adds a selector. And it's going to put in what it thinks that I want to add a selector for, but actually it's wrong. I'm going to type in IMG, and you'll notice as I start to type that it auto-populates what it thinks I might be typing in. This is important. Everything that you type in for a selector and for HTML code, you need to make sure that you are typing in lowercase letters and that your spelling is correct, because they need to match up with each other. So IMG is going to look, let me go to my source code right now, and I'm going to go code view. An IMG selector is going to look for anything in my HTML code that says IMG, and it's going to change the way that that is rendered on the screen. So it's going to change this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. You know, you can see all of the different things. If I accidentally spelt it ING in my selector, there isn't an HTML property ING, so it would not end up working correctly. It wouldn't have anything to relate to. So that's why spelling is so important in this. Just make sure that you are spelling things correctly. So I'm going to keep myself in split view so you can kind of see what's going on. I added in an IMG selector in my code. It added the brackets in where I am going to add the code in right there. And we can watch in the live view what is going to happen with the images based on the selectors that I add, or the properties that I add to that selector. So with IMG selected, I'm going to go over into my properties panel, and first I want to make sure I'm on layout. So that's the very first tab, and I want to change the width in the layout. And here's what's going to happen. When you click in here, I want you to go down to percentage and click. It's going to default to 0, and watch what happens to the logo when that happens. Boom, it goes away. And that's because it's that the width is now set to 0%, so it's not showing. I want you to manually type in 100%. It's going to get huge for a second, but that's okay. Next, what we're going to do is go down to height, and you need to, even though you can kind of see like it's grayed out, it says auto, we actually need to set it to auto to have that become a property. Next, what I want you to do is go down to max width, go to percentage. Again, it's going to default to 0. Manually type in 100%. That means that images cannot scale to bigger than 100%, bigger than what they are created at. And then I want you to go to vertical. We're going to do a vertical align. Vertical align, and we're going to set it to middle. So you'll have to kind of scroll down through layout to find that vertical align. It's after text shadow, there's text transform, letter spacing, word spacing, white spacing. Vertical align, set that to middle. And you can double check your code here. So your code should look exactly like mine looks like, with 100%, and everything ends with a semicolon. Height, auto, max width, 100%, vertical dash align, middle. So if you were having trouble finding any of the selectors in the properties panel, you can type in, pause the screen right now and type in exactly word for word what you see right here. Make sure you have your colon, space, semicolon at the end. If you see a dash, you must add that dash in. Next, what we're going to do is we are going to click on body because we're going to make a selector that goes after body. I'm going to click the plus sign one more time. Every time you want to make a new selector, you just click that plus sign. And I'm going to name this period style logo. And you'll notice as soon as I started to type in the word style, it gave me two different options. I'm going to do style logo. And make sure you have it selected in your selector. And you'll notice in the code, it added in that style logo underneath the body. So what do you think that we're creating a selector for now if it's style logo? Obviously, it is for the logo. And why am I naming things this way? I'm just going to pop over to the source code real quick and go into my header. And my first image right here, my logo has a is named dot style logo. So what I'm doing right now with this selector is I'm targeting just my logo here based on the name of the logo. So my navigation is called style nav. When I start to style my navigation, I will base my selector to select just that code name. And the reason behind this is I've dealt with all of my images, but the way I'm going to style my logo is different than how I am going to style the other images on the screen. You know, these images are going to be dealt with separately. So I can go back into style CSS so we can watch what's going on. Anytime you see an asterisk up here, that means something has not been saved. So it's always a good time to save in Dreamweaver. So I'm going to do a file, save all related files, and it's going to save everything that's open on the screen. So good habit to get into, saving and saving often. So again, style logo selected. I'm going to add some selectors now to that logo. I want to change my margin on the left to auto and hit enter. My margin on the right to auto. You'll notice it as I'm adding the code in to my properties panel, it's adding the code in right here. I want to change the display, which is right here, to block. And I want to change the width. I'm going to click pixels. It's going to change it. It's everything defaults in width for some reason to 0. I'm going to change it to 192 pixels. So you'll notice now that my logo is centered on the screen. It's a lot smaller, and you can't really tell what's going on with the display of block, but just know that it's doing exactly what it needs to do. Now, with that style logo still selected, I'm going to actually make a selector right after it. And I'm going to start to deal with that navigation, which we just saw was called style nav. So I'm going to, with style logo still selected, I am going to add a selector. I'm going to do dot style, and I'm going to click nav. However, I need to type something after style nav auto populates that box. I want to do a space UL, and UL stands for unordered list because I'm going to deal with the list items going on in my navigation. If you recall from the live session, all navigation needs to start out as an unordered list, and then we begin to format it. So I'll hit enter. So again, style nav space UL. And I'm going to do one property for this. And I just need to find it. Ooh, it might be under text. Sometimes I forget where things are located because I especially when I'm talking. I am looking for list style type. There we go. Right? Yes, there we go. List style type. So it's down under, it's in layout. If you scroll down past margin, past padding, past position, past float, past text shadow, down in this area that begins with text transform, list style type, I am going to set it to none. And you'll notice that took away my bullet points, which was part one of the problem of making it look like this. You'll notice there's no bullet points there. So setting that list style type to none gets rid of those bullet points. All right, now I'm going to make another selector right after. So make sure you still have style nav UL selected. We hit my plus sign and I'm going to start to type in style. I'm going to select style nav again. And I'm going to do a space, UL space LI for list item, space A for link. So I'm dealing with the links now within my navigation, and then hit enter. And you'll notice here it is, style nav UL LI A. So you have to have a space in between each of those items. And here it is in my selector. So for this one, I am going to go to, scroll down, text decoration. I want to click on this box that has the line through it because I want my text decoration to be none. Now watch what happens when I do that. That gets rid of my underlines that were on there. Next, what I want to do is I want to deal with the color. So I'm going to set a color. So right here under text color, I'm going to type in hashtag 2F322A and hit enter. That changes my links to that black color, but it's not like 100% black. It's kind of like a dark gray. Next, what I want is text align center, and then display up here at the top. I'm going to set that to block. That centers it. Then we got a couple of them here on this one. Scroll back down. Under text transform, I want to change it to uppercase. So see how there's an AB that's capitalized and all uppercase and then in all lowercase? I'm going to click on the capitalized AB right there. That capitalizes, makes them all caps, my navigation. And then I need to add in some padding. So for the padding, I want it to be 8 pixels. So I'm going to set a shorthand for 8 pixels, which you'll notice adds 8 pixels all around for me. So here is my code right here that I just added in. If you need to pause the video and type in the code, this is the code that we have just added to get our navigation to be centered on the screen underneath our logo. Now, while I have you here, there's something that I want you to notice. Of all the pages in our navigation, and this is a 5-page site, we have a services page, we have a gallery page, we have the crew page, we have a contact us page. However, how do we get back to our home page? We don't have a link once we're on one of these pages to get back to our home page. So this is something that we need to deal with. So we should probably do that right now while we're thinking about it. If we go to source code, because we were in styles.css, if we go to click on source code, And in the in the live view area, just click on the logo right there. What you can do down in the properties panel, you'll notice that there is a box for link and it's blank. I want you to browse for file and select index.html and click open. Now, we go back into Chrome, our logo is a hyperlink. So that means anytime somebody clicks on our logo, they will automatically go back to the home page. This is something that works in a lot of sites, so it's something that we're going to do here rather than adding in one more list item for our home page. So we've done a lot right now, so I'm going to do a file, save all related files before we keep going. All right, going back into my styles.css, we still have quite a few more selectors that we need to create today. So I want you to scroll past that last navigation one that you created and click on HP banner because we're going to add a selector after the banner. And for these ones, we're going to deal with the headlines on the page. We have headlines go from H1, I believe, through H5. Once you get into H4, H5, those sizes, they're not so much headlines anymore. They're pretty much smaller than your paragraph text. And you can only have one H1 headline per page, or else your site will be flagged that there are errors on it when you upload it. Somebody somewhere decided this rule. I'm not really sure why, but it's not up to me to basically change the rules of internet society. So just make sure that when you are creating headlines, going forward in life, you only have one H1 headline on your page and your other ones are like either H2, which is a little bit smaller, or H3 headlines. Just a good rule of thumb when you're coding. So again, with HP banner selected, I'm going to make another selector. I'm going to name it H1 and hit enter. And you'll notice it adds my code in right here underneath the HP banner, and I can deal with the properties for it. So I'm going to click on the text tool, and for font size, I'm going to change it to pixels. It's going to default to 0 for some reason. And I'm going to change it to 42 pixels. Next, I am going to change my under text transform. I also want it to be uppercase. So I'm going to click on that uppercase AB. So it'll say text transform uppercase. Then I'm going to deal with the font weight. So right here under text where it says font weight, I'm going to select 600. And I want a margin at the bottom only. So scroll up to be 60 pixels. So here is the code we just added. Font size, 42 pixels, text transform, uppercase, font weight, 600, margin at the bottom, 60 pixels. Next, I'm just going to continue on making some text adjustments right now. So I'm going to make, with H1 selected, I'm going to hit my plus sign, and I'm going to make another selector for H2, my next headline. And I am going to click on the text to go to font size. I'm going to make this one a little bit smaller. So this one is going to be 30 pixels. I want it to also be uppercase, so I'm going to scroll down to text transform, change that to uppercase. Then I want, for this one, I want my font weight to be 200 pixels. So a little bit smaller. And my margin at the bottom, there we go. I want that to be 23 pixels. I'll hit enter. So you can kind of see how it started to deal with the text, starting to change some of my text. So here is the code that we just added there. Again, if you need to, pause the video, fix your code before moving on. So with H2 selected, gonna make another selector. You can see what we're doing here. This one's gonna be H3, so yet another headline. For this one, I want my font size, to be 16 pixels. I want my text transform to be uppercase. I want my font weight, again, to be 200. And I want my margin at the bottom to be 120 pixels. So that's a lot of space. And I'll hit enter. So here's that code we just added for that one, for the H3. So with H3 selected, gonna make another selector, name it H4. For this one, it's gonna be kind of similar, honestly, to the H3. Text, font size, pixels is gonna be 16 pixels. Font weight is going to be 200. And under layout, the margin at the bottom is going to be 35 pixels. So similar, but not the same as the H3. Now after H4, we're gonna deal with our paragraph text. So I'm gonna make one more selector. I'm gonna name it P for paragraph. Under text, the font size, we can go to pixels and change it to 16 pixels. Under font weight, I'm going to change this one to 400. And under layout and margin, my margin at the bottom is going to be 35 pixels. And I'll hit enter. So here's the code for my paragraph text. All right, so we just took care of a lot of code for our text right now. So I'm going to do a file, save all related files, and let's take a look in Chrome and see what's happened. So I can see that things have started to, like, this is a lot thinner. There's more spacing here. It's really starting to come together. And look at what happened too. After changing the images to 100%, now when I scale, when I close up my my web page, so it looks more like the mobile version is supposed to look based on my Photoshop mockup here. See how it's all starting to come together? Pretty snazzy. All right, so let's get back into Dreamweaver. All right, next we're gonna scroll through our selectors until we get to info box dark. Make sure you're on global. There we go. Global, info box dark. If you're not selecting anything, you want to make sure that you've selected global, then info box dark. I could tell that I was in the wrong spot because there was all these other selectors underneath, and there should have been nothing at that point. So we're going to make yet another selector. And following in the footsteps of what we were just doing, we're going to do dot footer. And you'll notice it says footer text. We're going to select that. So we're going to deal with the text down here in our footer. And you can see it's added the code in right there. So for this one, we're going to go text, Font size, we're going to change it to pixels. It's going to default to 0 and disappear for a second. We're going to change it to 13 pixels because it's just copyright information that we're not getting, too much into. Then under layout, the margin at the bottom, so margin, we're going to change that to 20 pixels. Whoops, 20 pixels. Hit enter. So you can see the code right here. After you've done that, make sure you have footer text still selected. Global footer text. There we go. And you're going to add another selector. And this one we're going to do .col. And what this stands for are, the COL stands for our columns that we have. So we have a couple of different columns going on here. So I can kind of show you. I'm going to go to source code. And you'll notice my div. This one is called column. And everything inside of it deals with that. This one is called row. But inside of it, there's a div called column. So we're going to deal with all of those different divs that are named .col right now. And if you recall from my live session video where I did my little demo on divs, the divs are the containers that hold the information. So we're dealing with the columns for those divs. So I'll go back into CSS so we can kind of watch what's going on with the code right there. So make sure you have that column selected in your selectors. And for this one, we only have one thing we need to do. It's under layout. We're going to change the width to %. It's going to go to 0 real quick. And look how crazy it gets when that happens. And we're going to change it to 100% and just hit enter. That's all we need to do for that one. Then we're going to make another selector. And this one is going to be a little bit crazy to type out. It's going to be called period row. Then you're going to do a colon. Make sure it's a colon, not a semicolon. And it'll give you some options. It's going to be before. So once it puts in the before, you can click on that. Then you need to do a comma, space, period, row, colon, after. And then hit enter. So it should look just like this. Period, row, colon, I can't speak. Before, comma, space, period, row, colon, after. Right like this. So if you need to, pause the video and make sure you have that typed out correctly. Select in there. Now, for this one, I'm going to manually in the code, so you need to be in styles.css, I am going to manually type in two things. So you're going to hit a return, where you put your cursor where that bracket is, hit return, and type in the word content, and it's going to auto put that in for you. You can just hit enter, and it'll add in the colon for you, and just change it to 2 quotes. And then as soon as you put in the quotes, it's going to put 2 of them. Move your cursor over and put a semicolon and hit enter. And then you can type in display, hit enter, table, hit enter, semicolon. You have to end all of your code with the semicolon. So again, if you need to, pause the video right here and type that in. It should look exactly how it looks on my screen. Once you've done that, make sure you have row before, row after selected in your selectors. We're going to add in another selector. It's going to be called .row, colon, after, which you may think, but I just typed that. It doesn't matter. Now we're just still dealing with just the after one. And for this, you're going to click on layout, scroll down in your selectors, and where it says clear, which is right under float, so right under margin, then you have padding, then you have position, float, clear. Click on the one which has a box on both sides with an arrow going through. And when you hover over, it's called both, because you're going to clear both. And again, file, save all related files. So double check your code. I'm going to just go into code view real quick for you so you can have a look at this from column, or actually from footer text down. This is the code we just created. So you may need to pause the video and just double check on your screen what, against what I have on my screen right now. And make sure that you have, things that are lowercase, things that are uppercase. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we need to add some selectors, but we need to add them specifically into each of these media queries. So the first one that we are going to add a selector into is this min width 768. So you must, in at media, select min width 768. And you'll notice all of those global ones that we just created, those are gone. And that's okay, because what we're doing is the selectors that we're creating right now are only going to apply to the tablet view that we have. So you want to make sure that you have min width 768 selected, and then select HP banner. And we're going to add a selector in after that. So hit your plus sign, and it's going to be period, style, nav, space, UL, space, LI. Whoops. Just like that. And hit enter. And you'll notice in the code, it added that selector in under our at media min width. So here it is down here, right exactly where it's supposed to be. And for this one, you're going to change the display to inline block. You can change this to the 768 if you click on the bar right here, and you can watch what's happening right there in the bar. Now again, make sure you're on min width 768, click on style nav UL, and we're going to add another selector in after that. So plus, period, style, nav, space, UL, not UL, just UL, hit enter. And for this, we're going to say text align center. So see, it centered it right in the space there. Then again, make sure you're on min width, style nav UL, add a selector, H1. And we're going to change the font size to 40 pixels, because what we have it defaulted as in the global is really big, and that would show up like really huge, obviously, on a tablet. So we don't want it to be that big. And then we're going to change the margin at the top to 400 pixels and hit enter. So it should say font size 40 pixels, margin at the top 400 pixels. Next, making sure you're still in that min width with the H1 selected. Make another selector. This time it's going to be for H2. Hit enter. And we're just going to change the margin on this one. The margin at the bottom is going to change to 16 pixels. Then we have 2 more to go for this selector. We're going to, or for this media query, we're going to add a new selector. It's going to be period, COL, and then go down to the second one, and it should say dash MD dash 1 dash half and hit enter. And for this, Under layout, we're going to change the width to percentage and change it to 50%. And one more. Again, make sure you're on that media query and you're on the last selector. There we go. And this one's going to be for .col for column. And for this, we're going to go under layout. We want to float it left. So you go to float, and it looks almost like an American flag. Click on that float left. Then under padding, we are going to do 0 pixels, 7 pixels, 14 pixels. I think that's right. Let me double check that for a second. Hold on. Make sure I've got that right. 0 pixels space, 7 pixels space, 14 pixels. There, all right. You might need to manually type this in. It should just say padding, 0 pixels, 7 pixels, 14 pixels. I put this in a weird way and now I can't remember how I put this in. So I do apologize. Let me look. There we go. 0 pixels, 7 pixels left, 7 pixels right, 14 pixels on the bottom. All right, I had it a little bit backwards. I had the 0 on the top and the bottom and the 7 and the 14 in the wrong spots. So your padding should be 0, 7, 7, 14. There we go. And again, file, save all related files, and we can see what that did. We can close it up till we get to the tablet view. You should be able to tell because it should, there we go. So now it's centered in the middle. And look, it's set this up to run like this. Go back and then go to the smallest view, and it's 1 column. There we go. And there we go. All right, so it's all starting to come together. So we only have one more media query left that we need to add some selectors to. We're really moving along here, I must say. So in app media, select min width 1024 pixels and select the HP banner one because we're going to start adding our selectors after again. And we're going to hit a plus sign and we're going to start like we did with the other one. We're going to deal with the headlines first. So for H1, I want you to change under text the font size pixels to 62 pixels. And then under layout, the margin on the top to 325 pixels. Again, making sure you're in that media selector with H1 selected, add in another selector, and we're going to deal with the logo. So we're going to do dot style, select logo, hit enter. Because how does the logo look before we do this in our desktop version? It's centered in our mobile and it's centered in our tablet, but in our desktop version, it's over to the left. So with style logo, under layout, we're going to go to float left. Hasn't done anything yet, but that's okay. Next, we're going to make another selector, dot style nav. You hit enter. And for this one, I want to float right. Then with it selected again, make sure I'm in the right spot, I'm going to add dot call. And for this one, I'm going to pick the large LG 1/4. Hit enter. Under layout, I'm going to change my width to percentage, 25%. And that is the last one. And you're saying to yourself, but it hasn't changed my logo. But if you look, I have to open up the screen to get to 1024. And then once I open that up, you can see that those changes have been made, but I like to work in the 2 column, and it's just, there we go. It's just too small. My screen's just too small. So again, file, save all related files. Let's double check and see what's going on. Now my logo is over at the left and my navigation is over at the right. This is set up with the 4 images across the bottom, 2 column here, 1 column. So it goes 1, 2, 4. 1, 2, 4. Logo's where it belongs. Navigation is where it belongs. I only have one more thing to do. I got to add in those social media icons. So I'll go back in to Dreamweaver. And for this, I am going to need to deal with both the HTML and the CSS to add those social media logos in. So I'm going to go to source code. So that way it brings up my DOM panel. And based on my mockup, I can see that my social media icons belong down here in my footer. So there's a couple of different ways that you can do this. This is the way that I have always found kind of works for me. I'm going to open these up so you can see what I'm doing and see where I'm putting things in. I like to put things into a table, and there's a reason behind that. Think of a table, not a table that you eat at, but like a table in Microsoft Excel. Let me just open that up for a second so you kind of have a visual of what it is that I'm creating. So you have like a table that has like rows and columns. So if you want things to stay in a specific order, see like 1, 2, 3, you would make something that has, you know, the box setup of a table, so you can put like 1 social media icon here, 1 here, and 1 here. And then when you start to resize your table, it resizes all of those elements within it, you know, proportionally. So that's why I like to personally put things like social media icons into a table. Some people might show you differently, and everybody kind of has their own way of doing this. For me, this is just the easiest way that I have found to be able to do that. All right, so with inside of my footer, I'm just gonna, close up my other section so you can see what I'm doing. I've opened up my footer, I've opened up my div row, and I'm going to select div column. And what I want to do is I want to insert a child into that div column. And it's going to insert automatically a div, basically, because that's what Dreamweaver does. I'm going to start to type in, I want to add in a table. And I also want to give it the ID of social. So that way when I target that table, it will target it right there, you know, in by the name social. And you'll notice it put in that table. And it's not exactly where I need it to go, but we'll deal with that after. So in my split view, in my code, you can see my code for my table. And I need to change my border to 0 to get rid of those borders that's in there, but I'm gonna leave it at 1 right now so we can kind of see what's going on. And I need only 3 of these. I don't need these 2 rows. So I'm going to, you'll notice it automatically put in 3 rows and 3 columns. I actually do need 3 columns, but I don't need 3 rows. So I'm going to select the second TR and the third TR and just hit delete right there. And now it's down to 3 of those columns. Inside of this column, I'm going to insert a child, and it's going to be an IMG file. And that's going to open up my images, and I can find my social media icon. So I'm going to click on Facebook first, add that in, and underneath in my properties where it says Alt, I'm going to type in Facebook. You always want to give your images an alternative name. Second TD, I'm going to insert a child again, IMG. Hit enter. It's going to open up my images, and I think my Pinterest is next. Hit open. I'll name that under Alt in my properties. So I'm in properties. I see the Pinterest logo. Alt. Name it Pinterest. Select my last row or my last cell. Again, plus sign. Insert child. IMG. And select Twitter. And in the alt tag, I'm going to name it Twitter. So this is what your code should look like right now. You have a table width of 200, which we'll deal with that. The border is still set at 1. I'm going to set that to 0 and get rid of those borders. There we go. Then we have image source, social Facebook. Alt is equal to Facebook, width and height. Image source. Alt is equal to Pinterest, width and height, and image source is equal to Twitter, and then the width and the height. You can hit refresh. So I've added in the images in, but they're definitely not where I need them to be. So I need to deal with that in the CSS. So under global, I'm going to find footer. There we go. And I'm going to select that. I'm going to add a selector. I'm going to call it hashtag social, because I'm dealing with just those images in that table. And I'm going to change the width to auto, which is going to shrink them down to the size that they're supposed to be. I am going to change my height to pixels and 20 pixels. And I am going to go down to float. I'm going to float it right. And that's going to put them over near the right-hand side of the page. I can see how that looks. And there we go. Now, what you might want to do, and what I think you should do, is you should add the hyperlinks. So we need hyperlinks for Facebook, for Pinterest, and for Twitter. So I'm going to grab the URL for Facebook first. I'm going to copy it, go back into Dreamweaver, and with that first one selected, make sure double check with your logo and your properties. I'm going to paste in where it says link, the Facebook hyperlink. And where it says target, whoops, I'm going to change that to blank. And the reason why I want to do that is when they click on the Facebook logo and it's a hyperlink, I want it to open up in a new tab. I don't want to send anyone away from my website when they go to Facebook. So if I open it up in a new tab, they still have my website open in their original tab. So I haven't actually sent my users away. This is good, it's really good for your SEO, and it's good for, the marketing of your brand. So I'm going to do that for all of my links. Click on the next one, which is Pinterest. Again, I'm going to copy that URL under link. I'm going to paste it, then just kind of click off. Go to Target, change that to blank. And last one, Twitter. Copy the URL to the link. Kind of click off, Target, blank. So I'm going to go into code view so you can see. And this is all of the code that we just put in for that table. If you need to type any of it in and pause, double check against what you have on the screen. So here's your link code right here. Here is that space, Target blank. That is what makes it open up in a new tab. Then you have the source for your image source, your alternate name. So if for some reason the image does not load, the alternate name will load so users can see that that was supposed to be the Facebook icon. And then you have your width and your height. You have some kind of like random and NSB. You can leave that in. It's just kind of random space saving code that Dreamweaver puts in. Now do a file, save all related files. Let's double check this. See what happens. Still stays to the right. And still stays to the right. And it's supposed to be centered here. So we can try to get it to center, but if you want to leave it to the right, I'm okay with that, honestly. You know, we'll tackle that at a different moment if we have some time. So right now, you have your entire homepage and your footer ready to go.